Welcome back. Well, the midweek wonders have entered the ring to dissect the hot-button issues of the day. Conservative Parliamentary Secretary Aaron O'Toole hails from Southern Ontario, and he believes in the strap in school. NDP MP Ginny Sims is from Southern BC, and as a teacher, she never gave out detention once. Liberal MP Yvonne Jones comes to us straight out of the north. As Labrador's elected representative, do you believe in the strap or detentions or anything?
Well, once you've gotten a strap as many times as I did, Don, you don't believe in it anymore.
Oh, you got this.
I got this. I didn't say
you believe in it. All right. It was all coming at me just as we were going to the air. All right. Let's speaking of straps and detentions and that sort of thing. Yesterday, we got MP clearance to take off to Iraq and bomb. That was a big surprise because the Conservatives control the House of Commons. But today they set out to do 6 studies to research projects into domestic terrorism. So we're going to try and bring this problem into home base. I think it's kind of interesting. It sure sounds like they're examining the root causes of terrorism, which your leader, the Liberal leader, said we should be doing, but Stephen Harper kind of poo-pooed that. Do you feel like maybe there's some Justin Trudeau vindication here, that root causes are needed to be exposed so we can figure out how to stop this?
Absolutely.
That's a puffball question, by the way.
Well, I think that our leader's been saying that, but many Canadians have been saying it as well. And there is concern that we're not getting to the root of what some of these issues are, where the problems are, and starting to dig in and fix it at that level. And I'm happy that they're going to do these studies. And we'll be interested in seeing what the outcomes are and what the measures are to address those outcomes at the end of the day. That's going to be the most important piece here.
Well, that was the easy one. I want to know why Irwin Cotler, one of your more respected MPs, sat on his hands last night, didn't vote for the mission, didn't vote against it, and yet he didn't seem to get any penalty for that. Wasn't this a whipped vote?
Irwin Cotler is one of the most remarkable parliamentarians that I have ever known, and there's no doubt he's done a tremendous work abroad on behalf of Canada. Certainly he can speak for this better than I can, but Irwin Cotler is one of those parliamentarians that have been out there for a long time saying we need to be using firepower in terms of Syria in particular. And obviously his argument is that he didn't vote for the motion that was on the table simply because Harper was going to Assad asking permission to do this, which defies the principles and the beliefs of Mr. Cotler. And as I said, I'm sure he can answer for himself. In terms of Liberals and our piece in this, we were very clear. We were opposed to the mission that Prime Minister Harper had put before the Commons. We were not prepared to support it, and we did not support it.
You've been holding back very admirably here. I'm sure you want to comment on this.
Look, Irwin Cotler represents a lot of Liberals. Right now, Justin Trudeau has changed the Liberal Party radically, and there's a lot of people that are very upset by that. Lloyd Axworthy today.
He was on the show a couple of weeks ago screaming, we've got to whack these guys.
The Liberal Party traditionally has never shied away from Canada playing a responsible role in the world. That's what our motion is. We didn't rush into anything. Our first role was an advisory one. But our allies clearly said, we can use your assistance. Canada's never shied away from taking an active role with a limited mandate. And we've done that. And Justin's sort of flippant approach to it is a left turn for the Liberals. And there's a lot. I'm hearing about it in my riding from longtime Liberals coming up to me saying, I'm not comfortable with where Justin Trudeau is taking this Liberal Party. And you're seeing that even with members of his own caucus and deans of the party like Lloyd Axworthy. So I think, and then yesterday, he doesn't even seem to understand the fundamental principles of NATO, which were invoked essentially after the last major terrorist strike. So this is someone running to be Prime Minister, and I think Canadians are now seeing he's just not up to it.
Well, we certainly know where your leader stands, but what did you make of the Liberals' position over the course of the last 3 days?
It was very hard to make, because one minute they were for, the next they weren't sure, next maybe we could, and then maybe we shouldn't. And at the end of the day, they voted against the mission. And they voted for the amendments that we brought forward, which were very reasonable and an alternative. But I think the key thing here is, and I share the concern that you have somebody who's running to be Prime Minister and he doesn't understand what Article 5 is in NATO at this stage is a very, very disturbing. But more disturbing for me is actually this wavering all the time. And also the humor, which I must admit I was not impressed by when you describe our aircrafts.
Aaron, I want to go back to you just a second, Yvonne, on this to sort of get an update on what the Minister of Public Safety brought forward today. He's trying to frame this and the challenge domestically, not just on what's going on over there. What do you think needs to be done? What should be done to make sure we're not exporting Canadians to help against a combat mission that we're trying to crush?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think Canadians have been shocked to see Canadians taking part, radicalized Canadians.
130 or something?
Thankfully, and today the minister's revealed that there's up to 90 Canadians being investigated now by the RCMP with respect to terrorism probes, over 60 of them. So the RCMP ceases. These are things that are actively being done to make sure that people aren't radicalized, there aren't homegrown plots. But ISIL has already said that's clearly a goal they have, is not only to get people for their perverse actions abroad, but they're encouraging them to do them at home. So we have to be vigilant. The minister has been saying we will be, and we have to send a clear message that Canada's a place for opportunity, and the vast majority of people come here thrive. As all Canadians, have to show that this is not a place where that type of approach or values are condoned.
Don, this is just really important. I think all of us are shocked and outraged when we hear that Canadians are involved and about this homegrown terrorism. And I was so pleased when I heard that the government was going to be doing a study. I would hope it's going to be a non-partisan study. This is a matter of national security.
Good luck with that one.
And that we do it in such a way that it actually serves a purpose.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a study for the sake of it, but this is too serious an issue to go into that partisan quagmire. And I'm hoping what we will do is come up with some specific strategies, and also taking a look at how we can prevent the radicalization. Prevention is big, and I'm looking to the government then to put some investment, dollar amounts, into prevention programs.
Well, it sounds like they are. These reports that I was talking to Yvonne about, you know, it talks about the psychology of the internet and how that plays into terrorist activity, what makes people susceptible to recruitment, and how are resources transferred to these terrorist organizations. I mean, those are interesting questions and ones that need to be dealt with. Yvonne, what else should be done? I mean, do you seize the passports when they get back, rip them up? What do you do?
Well, I think the homegrown terrorism piece has been something that's been on the radar in Canada for some time, and that's why our leader has been out there before saying, get to the root cause of this problem. Let's look at it. Unfortunately, is what we're seeing with ISIL now, the recruitment of those militants that are in Canada, bringing them back to fight, you know, is where all of this is kind of coming to the forefront. But you cannot ignore the fact that it's been going on for some time. It's time to address it. We're happy that that process is finally starting, and as I said, the measures that are implemented after is going to be the significant piece in how these people get dealt with. But I want to go back to the comments that Aaron made, because I think it is completely off base. Our leader has been very clear in terms of our position with regard to the request by Prime Minister Harper to go into a combat role in Iraq. We have not wavered from the first. We've supported the Conservatives when they wanted to do the 30-day mission. We didn't have a problem with that. When they decided to step it up, obviously we felt that they should have been more transparent with Canadians in terms of what they wanted to do. And it's simply because we don't trust Stephen Harper.
Well, Jack,
and that's the ultimate piece that it's come down to.
So politics.
Why curiously though, Yvonne, just before I move along, why did Justin Trudeau not give a speech when this debate went on? I mean, he's leader of the party, wants to be prime minister. Tom Mulcahy gave almost an hour. Why didn't Justin Trudeau address that? Instead, he gave Mark Garneau the floor.
Our leader spoke in the House on this, I think it was on Friday, with regard
Briefly,
to the motion. He's spoke in the media with regard to the motion, and it's not a fact that he wasn't prepared to speak to it. He spoke to it on several occasions. However, Mark Garneau was the head critic, and he spoke for our caucus when he did. You know, unlike other parties, we have play a fair role. People are responsible for the portfolios that they're a part of, and it's not always dominated by one person.
But here, let me just say something, Don. Sending our troops, our men and women, into war is one of the most serious votes, I would say the most serious vote I'm going to take as a parliamentarian. And when we're in Parliament, the leaders should be able to get on their feet and to speak to that effect.
And he did.
And quite
speak,
honestly,
he
to
did
have
get on
the
his feet and speak.
You know, I didn't interrupt you. So for me, the important part here is that we had the leader of the third party who sat in the House, asked a question when our leader spoke, and then left to go and have lunch where Hillary Clinton was speaking, instead of staying in the House and debating. Debating the issue and listening. This is about leadership. This is where
one thing, Don?
Your real leadership gets tested.
I agree. You know, I did research for my speech. I spoke on this, which was important for me as someone who served in uniform. I read Mackenzie King's speech in response to the opposition support in 1939. I tried to find Jean Chrétien's speech in relation to Afghanistan. There was none. There was no debate, Don. They sent Canadian troops ill-equipped on what became a 12-year mission with no debate. Yet our motion, which was very clear, put before the House by the Prime Minister, they're claiming wasn't clear enough. Justin is radically changing the Liberal Party, and you can see a lot of Liberals themselves aren't comfortable with it. And in this day and age where there's Russian aggression in Ukraine, we've got the challenges in the Middle East, this is a time for somebody who has strong leadership internationally, and Justin's showing Canadians every day he's not ready.
Well, just for the record, the Prime Minister didn't speak in the debate either. He
That's
spoke
right.
on the Friday, introducing the motion, same day as Justin.
And the two lead ministers.
And
in fact, all the ministers.
And let me remind you who's been in government for most of the years of the Afghan war, and who led that war through the last 7-8 years. It was Stephen Harper.
All right.
And I just want to put that on the record.
You did. Well done. I want to quickly talk about, it's an interesting, completely different from the conflict, but there's a pipeline called the Energy East Pipeline that's going to be going to regulatory authorities for approval fairly shortly. And the way I'm reading it, this thing is going to run 4,600 kilometers from Alberta right to the East Coast. And it's going to have a huge capacity, a higher capacity in the Keystone XL pipeline that's held up. I often wonder if this isn't sort of the magic solution to getting oil sand product to the East Coast and over to Europe, where, by the way, just yesterday, oil sand energy was regarded then, lost the dirty oil label as part of a trading dispute that we've settled now. It seems to me that that's kind of logical. What's your take on this? Can we say to Obama, to heck with the Keystone, we don't need it?
We've always said as a government we need to get these products to market, and that was the major challenge. And the fact that we were not able to meant that Canada wasn't getting the full price we could, and in fact it meant the federal government, in terms of revenues, was getting less each year. And Canadians all benefit. This is what a lot of the opposition like to forget in debates on this. These are parts of the revenue the government uses towards transfers for health and social services. Everyone in Canada is benefiting, and we only benefit more if we can safely get this to market. We've always supported any pipeline routes that go through the proper NEB, National Energy Board review, to be done right. The Eastern proposal has a great opportunity with the refinery that's in St. John, New Brunswick, that could open up that whole new market. Like the free economy works, basically, the more markets and the more customers you have, the better price you get. And that's what we need to do when we're
I think even
selling.
the NDP supports this, don't they?
Well, we're actually in support of that particular direction, and especially if all the environmental checks and balances are there. And we wish they hadn't been degraded to the degree that they have been over the last number of years. So we do have some concerns around that. But we're fully in support of the value-added jobs that will be there as a result of the oil going to the refineries. But it's also going across Canada. It can be used by Canadians on the East Coast. Rather than importing oil and exporting ours, it seems to make sense. It'll save on the environmental footprint. But I think, once again, just as the people on the West Coast said that the checks and balances have to be there for environmental protection, we have to make sure that they are there for this pipeline as well. It seems very, very promising when you first look at it.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea of value-added jobs. I can tell you, Don, that since I was teaching, I've always been so shocked at how many jobs we send overseas and our children here are losing decent paying jobs and those opportunities. So we look for those value-added jobs.
You'd give Stephen Harper detention over this, wouldn't you? All right, never mind.
But not,
Moving on.
but not the strap.
Last word to you.
Well, we're a resource-driven country, and I mean, we need to be able to export our resources. We need to be able to get resources to market. So saying no to pipelines makes no sense. Saying yes to them when they're environmentally sound is what makes sense, is what drives the economy in this country. And the only issue here is environmental standards in this country right now. I don't think we've reached the highest standard that we could be reaching and still seeing great productivity and infrastructure around these resource development sectors. So, you know, we want to see the pipeline. When you keep looking at what's happening with rail, Lake Megantic, what happened in Saskatchewan yesterday, I mean, these are major issues that we're dealing with rail in this country right now. And to talk about continuing to put more fuel products on that kind of transportation mode doesn't really, in my mind, protect the safety of
And Don,
Canadians,
environmental standards have not been degraded. All that's happened is there's more certainty in the process now. Some of these projects were hung up for years and years and years. And you couldn't get the investment. You couldn't get the investment.
We're out of time.
No.
Let's throw that
Just come to
ball.
the Northern Gateway folk and talk to them. Just talk to the Northern Gateway
Thank
folk.
you all. Have a good break week. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.